Hello everyone, and welcome to the Livres Canada Books Export webinar, Exporting to Indonesia. The presentation takes about an hour, and we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. We'll be taking questions via the Q&A function in WebEx found at the right-hand part of your screen. Feel free to submit questions as you think of them throughout the webinar, and I'll collect them for the Q&A session at the end. I'm very pleased to present your host, Thomas Nung Atasana. Initially a Parents Magazine editor, Nung started venturing into book publishing in 1981 by joining Kompas Gramedia, the largest media group in Indonesia. After working as a book editor for several years, he ended up as chief editor for Gramedia Pustaka Utama, one of the leading book publishing companies in Indonesia. In 2012, he was invited by IKAPI, the Indonesian Publishers Association, to establish Borobudur Literary Agency, representing Indonesian book publishers and authors. Currently, he's the International Rights Director of Borobudur and the Coordinator of Rights Sales for the National Committee for Indonesia as guest of honor for the Frankfurt Book Fair. Now, I'd like to welcome Nung and thank you for joining us. I'll now turn over the controls to you, Nung, so that we can get started.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear Canadian book publishers. My warmest greetings from Indonesia, a tropical country on the equator and a large archipelago, most likely as large as the Canadian Arctic archipelago. I hope that Indonesia will echo louder and get more international recognition in terms of its book publishing industry due to its role as the guest of honor for the forthcoming Frankfurt Book Fair. And as you see in my presentation, 17,000 islands of imagination is the Indonesian motto for the event. And I will add that thousands of opportunities to do business in Indonesia and help to enrich Indonesian book industry are open. Well, Indonesia is the 16th largest area in the world, while Canada the second largest just after Russia. On the other hand, Canada ranks the 36th largest population in the world, while Indonesia the 4th largest, just after the United States. Imagine 255 million people. What a big market. Wait a minute, we will find out later whether it is also true for book market or not. By the way, you see that more than half of the population live in Java, and more than 10 million people live in Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia. Indonesia has thousands of islands, over 13 or 17,000, depending on high or low tide parameter. However, book distribution channels are mostly concentrated in major cities and towns. Most bookstores and book retailers are located in Java, with a big number in Jakarta. Sumatra comes second, followed by Sulawesi or Celebes and Kalimantan or Borneo. Only a very few channels cater for Nusa Tenggara on the Lesser Sunda Islands, Maluku on the Moluccas, and Papua. Consequently, it is quite costly to ship books from Java to Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Nusa Tenggara, Maluku, and Papua, unlike from Java to Sumatra. It is also quite common that bookshops outside Java and Sumatra mark up book cover prices about 5% or even a little bit more. With more than 700 of local languages or dialects, Indonesia is fortunate to have Indonesian, also known as Bahasa Indonesia, as the only official language, making Indonesian able to communicate across different native dialect speakers from Sabang in the northwestern part of Sumatra to Merauke in the eastern part of Papua. It is only natural that most books in Indonesia are written in Indonesian. It is also convenient since Indonesian writing system adopts the Latin alphabet. English is considered as the first foreign language, be one of the major subjects at schools besides Indonesian and mathematics, and formally started to be introduced at the 4th grade of elementary school or the 1st grade of junior high school. In major cities and towns, however, even some preschools start teaching simple English to their 3-year-old students. Some high schools in major cities and towns have French as their extracurricular minor subjects, along with German. Several universities also have French departments in their faculties of letters, but you can only find a very few French titles in the bookstores, especially bilingual books on learning French only. Recently, the majority of Indonesian people aged between 15 and 64, amounting to 66.52% of the population. It means that the majority of Indonesian people are in active and productive ages, making Indonesia enjoy the so-called demographic bonus or demographic window of opportunity, and making Indonesia a more potential marketplace. Though Indonesia is considered as one of the most democratic countries in the world, an Indonesian citizen is supposed to adhere to one of the 6 religions recognized by the Indonesian government. An Indonesian citizen has to state his or her religion in his citizen ID. Thanks to the official national motto of Indonesia, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or United in Diversity, that makes Indonesia the land that unites many opposites. While Indonesia is home to the biggest Muslim community worldwide, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, as well as believers of natural religions live side by side. Accordingly, it is also natural that books on religion and spirituality, especially related to Islam, are very popular in Indonesia, second in rank in sales, just after children's books. A consequence that arises is that book publishers have to be careful about religious issues. Though fortunately there is no government censorship for books, publishers usually carry out their own censorship. More and more Indonesian people are formally educated. 54 million students are now in their primary and secondary education, while 5 million students are attending universities. It is obvious that the literacy rate is also high, reaching 93% of the population, of which 95% male and 91% female. Since 2003, the Indonesian government has spent 20% of its national budget on education, which is the biggest percentage. The government has also invested in digital textbooks for primary and secondary education. Libraries in Indonesia consist of one national library, and I will make a kind of revision due to the information from the Indonesian National Library, that instead of 2,600 public libraries, it should be 26,000 public and special libraries. And with this correction, then the total amount of the Indonesian libraries is around 303,000. I think this number is okay, especially that community libraries keep growing fine in number. It is obvious that Indonesian libraries still need a considerable amount of books. Now about Indonesian illiteracy. The International Statistical Institute regards Indonesia as a developing country. It is true due to the fact that Indonesia has a growing educated middle class and a very digital-minded young generation. Nowadays, Internet is a must, with about 83.7 million users, equal to 33% of the population, via various devices like PCs, cellular phones, laptops, tablets, and notebooks, as well as through a huge number of Internet kiosks. The latest survey by the Indonesian Ministry of Communication and Information shows that 58% of people aged between 12 and 34 spend about 7 hours online daily. There were already around 46 million smartphones in 2014. The use of social media is also massive. There are around 62 million of Facebook users, second largest after the United States, about 30 million of Twitter users, and more than 5 million bloggers. Social media are also considered as effective means to promote books. Publishers, authors, and bookstores generally use Twitter accounts to communicate and promote their new books to their followers, such as Gramedia Pustaka Utama Publishers at Gramedia, which has more than 294,000 followers, and a prolific woman author, Dewi Lestari, at the Lestari, who has more than 1,170,000 followers. Recently, Instagram is getting more and more popular with thousands of users. With a GDP of about 915 billion US dollars in 2015, Indonesia is the 16th largest economy in the world and the largest in Southeast Asia. The real GDP growth is also considered stable between 5 and 6%. On the production side, the highest growth, 10.0 and 2%, is achieved by information and communication business. So it also reflects the fast-growing number of Internet users and the increasing ownership of smartphones. Having a GDP per capita of 3,630 US dollars, Indonesia is classified as a developing country. It is promising indeed to witness the rising of the Indonesian middle class and affluent consumers with an increase of 8 million to 9 million each year, and will be about 90 million in 2015. General book sales, excluding sold books, is only about 300 million US dollars, or 0.033% of the GDP, which is not sufficient enough, considering the rising of the Indonesian middle class and affluent consumers. In Indonesia, a bookstore generally sells books and stationeries and other non-books items. Unfortunately, the number of brick-and-mortar bookstores are declining, amounting to about 700 active outlets only, plus several hundreds of small book kiosks. In the past years, there were about 2,000 active outlets. Fortunately, the situation is being balanced by the rapid growth of online retailers. The big player in the book distribution channel is Toko Buku Gramedia 10 bookstore with its nationwide outlets from Sumatra to Papua, where Toko means store and Buku means book. At this moment, Gramedia 10 bookstore own 110 outlets, and by the end of this year, they will open 7 new stores. They also have 3 distribution centers located in Jakarta and Surabaya in Java and Pekanbaru in Sumatra. The other 10 bookstores, as you see, are Toko Gunung Agung, Togamas, Tisera, and Paperclip, mostly located in Java. Intermedia, Gracia, and Promax are examples of independent bookstores. Now there are only a few book distributors or wholesalers, such as Buku Kita and Gramedia Merchandising in Jakarta and Solusi Distribusi in Yogyakarta. There are also several direct selling companies, such as Nissan dan Semesta and Gramedia Direct Selling. Books are also distributed via book counters in supermarkets, and Carrefour Supermarkets Group with their 87 outlets have the biggest numbers of book counters, followed by Giant Group, Lotomat Group, Ramayana Group, and Matahari Group. There are 2 kinds of online retailers on the Indonesian book industry. First are online bookstores, and second are online stores that sell anything including books. Both kinds of online retailers are growing and expanding rapidly with the efficient support of the nationwide shipping carriers, namely GNA, Tiki, and Pos Indonesia. And due to the fact that online businesses are more economical and practical to manage, especially when there are huge number of potential buyers connected by the internet. The former 2 are private companies, GNA and Tiki I mean, while the latter is owned by the Indonesian Postal Service. Nowadays, online businesses in Indonesia are growing fast, reaching 2.7 billion US dollars in transactions. You see on the right, big names in Indonesian online stores are Kaskus, Lazada, Blibli, Tokopedia, and Bukalapak. And on the left, online bookstores. There are also 2 types, ones that are owned by publishers and ones that are independent from any publishers. On the left are samples of the online bookstores, Buka Buku, Kutu Buku, Bukupedia, Buku Kita, buku hemat, ini buku. So they use buku, meaning books. Also Q store, TV, and Gramedia online, and Misan store. Imported books, mostly in English, are available in Indonesia in major cities and towns. There are two big names in imported book distributors. First is Unibooks Indonesia. They mostly import books from North America, Europe, and United Kingdom. And second, Sinar Star Books. They primarily import books from the United States, United Kingdom, Europe, and Japan. There are 4 English chain bookstores. First, Periplus with 45 retail outlets in Java, Bali, Lombok, Kalimantan, and Sumatra, mostly located at airports and shopping malls. Second, Kinokuniya, which also provides Japanese books, with 4 stores at largement in Jakarta. Third, Books and Beyond, formerly Times Bookstore, with 36 stores in Java, Bali, Sulawesi, Kalimantan, and Sumatra. Fourth, Aksara, with 4 stores in Jakarta. Besides those 4 English chain bookstores, Toko-buku Gramedia chain bookstore also provide imported books counters in their 33 stores throughout Indonesia. When the English online bookstore is Open Swali Bookstore Indonesia. From the data based on the requirements of ESPNs to Indonesia Library by the publishers, I obtained data of annual new titles and active book publishers. You can see that the active book publishers are from Java, and the greater part of it is from Jakarta. And then followed by Sumatra, Sulawesi, Bali, and then the Maluku, Papua, Nusa Tenggara, very few. When the annual new titles are growing from 2012, 2013, and 2014. I think it's a good rise. From 23,000 to 36,000, 44,000. The Association for Indonesian Book Publishers are called IKAPI. In Indonesian, it is Ikatan Penerbit Indonesia or Indonesian Publishers Association. It has around 1,315 members, and 40% general publishers and 60% school book publishers. There are 2 big groups. The biggest one is Gramedia Group or Kompas Gramedia Group. And there are several publishers, Gramedia Pustaka Utama, Alex Media Komputindo, Buana Ilmu Populer, Grasindo, penerbit buku Kompas, and Perpustakaan Populer Gramedia. They have also a comic publisher called MNC. In the Misan Group, you have Misan Pustaka, Nora Books, and Bentang. And on the right, they are independent publishers. Erlangga is also very big. Penerbit Swadaya, Agromedia Pustaka, Rasda Karya, Tiga Selangkai, Bumi Aksara, Pesan Blang, Selambil Semesta, Siklul Hakim Bestari, Kanisius, Femina, Republika. So most of the publishers are in Jakarta and in Bandung. Kanisius in Yogyakarta. Tiga Selangkai is in Solo, Central Java. There are more than 200 university presses now, and some are active, some are not active. The association is EPPCI, Indonesian University Presses Association. You see, IPP Press, this is the most active. Bogor Institute of Agriculture, Bogor. UI Press, Jakarta, Gama Press, Yogyakarta. This is the three are owned by the government, state universities, while Penerbit Universitas Ahmad Jaya and Penerbit Universitas Sanata Dharma are private. Penerbit ITB, Erlangga University Press, ITS Press, UB Press, Badan Penerbit Universitas Diponegoro, Unsri Press, Lebhas, Unlamtes, and Unjantes. All of them are state universities. Now there are only 3 literary agencies in Indonesia. I think it's very few. Most Indonesian publishers deal with overseas publishers or literary agents directly, and only recently some of them have started using the services of the 3 literary agencies available. Indonesian authors also submit their manuscripts directly to publishers. The first is Maxima Creative Agency, established since 2004, representing quite a number of publishers from North America, UK, and Europe. Second is Tatomori Agency, Indonesia. Since 2010, it is also a branch of Tatomori Thailand, representing around 20 foreign publishers. And the third is Borobudur Agency, IKP. So it is owned by IKP, and I manage this agency. Established since 2013, representing and facilitating Indonesian publishers and authors to market their copyrights overseas. E-books. Nowadays, large publishers And university presses publish e-books along with the print books. And some sell the e-books via their e-book stores, such as Gramedia for Kompas Gramedia publishes e-books. They have around 9,000 titles and will add with 3,000 new titles soon. Lumos, now Misan Store for Misan Pustaka publishes e-books. They have about 1,060 titles. And Ilosda for Pustakarya publishes e-books. They have 200 titles. So Gramedia is in Jakarta, while Misan Store and Losda are in Bandung. The Indonesian Ministry of Education and Culture provides free school e-books for primary and secondary education. That is the number 1,331 textbooks. And the estimated number of e-books published in Indonesia is less than 2% of print books. And yet the number keeps on increasing now. Most users prefer tablets and smartphones in Android, iOS or Windows platforms to read e-books to e-reader devices like Kindle and Nook. Scoop is a popular e-reader app in Indonesia, meaning they provide e-reader apps on the Indonesian users. Now I'll go to pricing system, average sprint run, bestseller, criteria, and reference. Pricing system. Cover price of e-books is generally 75% of print books. Discount for bookstores and distributors ranging from 45% to 55%. And mostly returnable, while discount for e-book stores is 50%. Tax is 10% times cover price minus discount on any genres except school books, textbooks, and religious books. Royalty for translated print books ranging from 6 to 8% of cover price, while for translated e-books, 25% of net receipts. The average print run is 3,000 copies and up to 5,000 copies for children's picture books. Of course, for small publishers, they usually start with 1,000 or 2,000 copies. For bestseller criteria, 6,000 up to 10,000 copies sold in 1 year. So for 10,000 copies are mostly for children's picture books. And bestseller list reference for translation for Indonesian publishers are the New York Times, Publishers Weekly, and Amazon.com. This is about segments, the top 10 genres, the sources from Toko Buku Gramedia, and the nationwide chain bookstore. You see that certain books, both in 2013 and 2014, are in the top rank, number 1. Then in 2013, the number 2 is religion and spirituality, while in 2014, number 2 is school books. You see that fiction and literature is also popular. And then number 5, reference and dictionary. Number 6, business and economics. Number 7, motivation and self-help. Number 8, social sciences in 2013 and psychology in 2014. An example of psychology is emotional intelligence. Cookbooks, number 9 in 2013, and while social sciences, number 9 in 2014. And then number 10, computing and internet in 1913, while cookbooks in 1914. Then for best-selling translated novels, you have 4 single titles. You have Inferno, and the Da Vinci Code, put by Dan Brown, Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, Adultery and the Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and The Cuckoo's Calling by J.K. Rowling. And Life of Pi used to be a bestseller by Ian Martel, a Canadian. And for series and authors, Harlequin Roman series by Harlequin Enterprises in Canada, Sherlock Holmes series, Agatha Christie, Dan Brown, Stephen King. So for Dan Brown, there are several titles. Stephen King, of course, yes. Shopaholic series, especially for women. And the authors of Kinsella. Also Paulo Coelho, James Patterson, and the Japanese author Haruki Murakami. Best-selling translated children's and young adult books. Single titles: Frozen, Storybook by Disney, Toy Story, Disney and Pixar. And The Fault in Our Stars, John Green, Paper Towns, John Green, and Toto-chan, that's Japanese title by Tetsuko Kuroyanagi. And for series and authors, of course, Harry Potter series, the Divergent series, it's very Veronica Roth, yeah. Disney comics and picture books, John Green, The Twilight Saga, Stephanie Meyer, The Hunger Games trilogy, Sandy Collins, Naruto series, that is manga, Detective Conan series manga, and The Adventures of Tintin series. Best-selling translated non-fiction. Single titles, that's The Hero, The Secret, both by Rhonda Byrne, Like This Journal by Carrie Smith, Canadian, The Everything Store, yeah, and that is Redstone, that's about Jeff Bezos and the Amazon, I think you know. Why A students work for C students, Kiyosaki. Good to Great, Jim Collins. Marketing Management, Kotler. The Miracle of Enzyme, Hiromi Shinya. Disney English Dictionary. Sorry, Disney English Indonesian Dictionary from Disney. Originally, if I'm not mistaken, Disney English Korean Dictionary, and then adapted into English Indonesian Dictionary. It used to be a bestseller, Visual Dictionary Indonesian English, published by QA International Canada, and 4 series and authors. Chicken Soup for the Soul series, from Montreal Context, Canada. Rich Dad and Poor Dad series, and the author Robert T. Kiyosaki, Rhonda Byrne, John Maxwell, Philip Kotler, Chris Anderson, Bling, Dale Carnegie, and Karen Armstrong. Karen Armstrong is, I think, the famous books are The History of God and The History of Islam, bestsellers in Indonesia. Now about licensing and rights negotiation. Most large Indonesian publishing companies that do trade books and mass market paperbacks still count on translation, especially word bestsellers, around 40% to 60% of their titles. Of course, they will do hardbounds or hardcover, especially when a title is booming and it's a bestseller, and then they will produce the hardcover edition as a kind of gift books. Foreign publishers can do both ways, dealing with Indonesian publishers directly and through the 3 literary agencies. Of course, for the Buddha agency, usually facilitating the Indonesian publishers and authors, but the 2 others are facilitating foreign publishers. And translators for French Indonesian are limited and with higher fees. The following terms are open to negotiate between both parties. Initial print runs vary depending on genre. Children's books and novels usually around 3,000 up to 5,000 copies. Non-fiction 1,000 up to 4,000 copies. And the popularity of titles also matters. Initial print runs and reprints are generally in paperbacks. Royalty rates about 6 up to 8% for print books based on cover price, and 25% for ebooks calculated on net receipts. Advance royalty payment around 20% to 30% of estimated royalty payment on the initial print run. Courtesy copies for publicity and promotion purposes 150 copies up to 300 copies. Period of agreement 5 years. Exporting. Of course, exporting print books to Indonesia is promising because there are 2 active book importers. And the growing bookstores, in the growing English bookstores and English book counters, as well as online retailers, and also the rising middle class and affluent consumers. Printing books in Asian countries have a shipping advantage, and Indonesia has a number of reputable printing houses such as Kapasari, Indonesia Printer, and Percetakan Gramedia. Percetakan means printing house. Also, the possibility of making use of the Indonesian print-on-demand facilities for paperbacks is also an option to cut shipping costs. Co-publishing. Though uncommon, co-publishing seems could be attractive to the Indonesian publishers if the contents of the work have prospective selling points on the Indonesian market. Of course, not necessarily in the word bestseller. Supported with well-prepared marketing plans, and funded with reasonable size accepted by both parties. Production costs and revenue sharing are preferable, while profit sharing is more complicated to carry on. And both parties are prepared for mutual trust and long-lasting cooperation. When there are a number of talented comic artists in Indonesia, either working individually or under art studios, with excellent service to produce comics and graphic novels for international market, including Indonesia, of course, such as Parawan Studio with various comic artists specialized in Western comics, graphic novels, and manga. Their international clients are Mattel, Penguin, Lucasfilm, Akalia, Blizzard Entertainment, Little Brown and Company. Cendana Art Media is a comic publisher with comic artists of Academy Samali, which is a comic artist community. They specialize in graphic novels and comics. And Mr. Apriyadi Kusbiantoro is a professional comic artist. And his international clients are Davos Comics and Don Lawrence Collection. I think this is in the Netherlands. Dark Horse Comics in the United States. Yeah. These two are samples from the work of Paravan Studio. One on the left is the cover from Rayon Comics. So they have a kind of comics magazine called Rayon. This is a monthly magazines. And one on the right is the keeper is illustrations. And from Cendana Art, I present Enjah graphic novels. On the left is the cover, while on the right is samples of 2 pages of Enjah. In the works of Apriyadi Kusbiantoro. On the left is the cover of Baratayuda Comics, Baratayuda and Epic from India, and on the right is a sample of illustration.